What are those?
Those are my purple bees.
Oh,
Purple, red, yellow, blue. The perfect villain outfit. Not really. I look more like a clown, but it's me at the last minute. Ooh, what can I do and throw one to make Carissa laugh? And unfortunately, we
I did one.
flip-flopped and we filmed in different directions because we filmed two today, but I was thinking this was more appropriate for our language one because I'm like, hey, I developed my own body language, which is cartoonish.
Which is really funny because you're not usually in such bright colors.
I know. I'm always black and dark and, grim.
Yeah, wouldn't that be more villainous?
Oh
Dark
yeah,
shade.
it's my brain is flip-flopped. To me, this is
Yeah,
villainous. It's like a
yeah.
pirate. That's what I'm thinking of.
Definitely you're wearing superhero colors. You're like wearing like the bright colors to save the day.
Kids, don't
That is
bubble into your Stanley. It's too much back pressure on your voice. Can you hear that ringing? All right, pull me back in.
yes. Welcome
Villains.
back to the Always Right podcast where
I'm not going to say
today,
what today's podcast is about because I done said it 3 times. So you tell us, Carissa.
well, we're going to create some villains in our writing. Some bad guys. Do your bad guys and your villains and stuff like that in your writing, do they hold iPhones or Androids?
Oh, they hold androids, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have you heard that conspiracy theory that if
No.
someone has an iPhone, they're the good guy, but if they don't have an iPhone, they're the bad guy?
No.
Hmm.
No.
Supposedly that's a thing. Like,
Though I
because
do have an
bad guys
Android.
don't buy Apple. What?
I do have an Android.
You do?
Yes, somebody gave it to me, but I only use it because I have this app on it for teleprompter. So if
Mhm.
I got what is that little thing? It is a teleprompter. So I
Where?
got a teleprompter app. I can set it down there. It shines up on the screen. I can put my iPhone behind it and record myself reading scripts. So, and I was like, I'm not going to spend, $1,000 for another iPhone just to have to read that. So
You have like 2 iPads. You could use your iPad.
no, it don't fit. It's the way it is. This doesn't fit. It's like a really compact one for, small shoots.
All right.
Yes.
Anyways, so let's talk about creating villains and the bad guys in our writing. Who are some of the bad guys you can remember from fiction
Uh,
that comes
okay. Don't say his name.
dun, 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 dun.
Voldemort.
Oh, that one? I was thinking about
Oh yeah, I should
Darth
have
Vader.
known. Darth Vader.
Yes. I was thinking of Darth Vader. Yeah, but he who shall not be named, Voldemort.
Joe Dirt. Oh yeah, Voldemort.
You know, the Joker is listed here as an option. And the Heath Ledger version? No. Like I feel like that's I mean, definitely I don't know, like when you think of the have you watched the Joker movies? Like the
I
new
watched
one?
the first one. I haven't watched the second one with Gaga, and I actually like that because he's the type of villain that like a great backstory. Because we always thought he's just some kind of nut or he fell into these chemicals in some of the comic books, but he was a true schizophrenic and he just snapped.
Mhm.
So it was like, yeah, okay, yeah, now he's a true villain. I mean, I was almost feeling sorry for this guy throughout the whole
Yeah.
movie till boom.
I didn't watch it, but the Hubs did, and he said it's you get in that backstory. It's kind of like it's nice to see like where his darkness came from.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like all the Jokers that I've seen, whoever's played, but that was just on another level. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't expect that.
Well, one of the questions I ask in our notes is basically what's the fundamental purpose of a villain in our narrative structure? And honestly, it's kind of like you would not understand light if there was no darkness. You would not understand the hero if he had no villain to stop. He would just be a farmer in Kansas, in Smallville, you know? You wouldn't really have anything to fight. I got to sneeze.
Bless you.
Look, my nemesis
Yeah,
is
I mean, there's so many different ways a villain is created. Is
Mhm.
it, is it from pain? What's that movie? Glass and
Oh,
Invincible,
Unbreakable.
Unbreakable. So
Glass, Unbreakable, and then there's a third one.
yes, and I can't
What's
like
that? I don't even remember what that one's
not
called, but that I mean
Splice,
that one was
Split.
really good.
Yeah, no, they were all that trilogy
Split.
was great.
Was it Split?
Maybe it was Split.
I think it's called Split, where he's got all the split personalities. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's two villains that come from a very different background. Multiple
Three.
personality, it's
Three.
just in the brain, and one is like I was so engulfed in comic books, and you could break my bones if you touch me. I got this disease. So, I
Well,
need.
there's 3 villains, though.
Who's the third?
We just you got Unbreakable, you've
Yeah,
got
he's not. Yeah,
Split,
but
and
but
Mr. Glass.
but the same characters are across them. So,
Well, you got Mr. Glass,
yes,
who shatters. He's kind of like the he's like the brain behind the
the
creating the other
mastermind,
villains.
and
Yeah, the mastermind. Yeah. And then you have Split, who has the multiple personalities,
yep,
and then which I feel like him. It's weird. Like he's definitely a villain, but some of his personalities are like anti-heroes in a way.
yep.
Yeah. But it's a good example for the sheer fact that so what is the purpose of this? Because it's creating a little bit of like flow in your storyline. It gives your hero a driving force.
Yep. But who's the
It
third
gives your
villain?
well, that was Bruce Willis.
No, he's not. He's the hero. What are you talking
Is he the
about?
hero?
Y-
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He just
Because remember, he
betrayed.
was kind of pushed. He survived that train wreck, and so Mr. Glass is like, I want to train you because you're invincible. You're unbreakable. And so
But I thought there were 3 inside of that
it's been a while since I watched them.
facility.
There could have been, but those are like the three main people.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah, because I thought that there were 3 kind of in that at the end all come together, the 3 together, Mr. Glass, Split, and that one. Now I'm gonna have to go back and
yeah,
revisit
because
that.
you know what, we're going to get slapped for I'm getting these names wrong for these movies, and I love the main. I'm Alzheimer's or something. I can't even. James McAvoy. What a great actor. I mean, I love him. So villain, and then in X-Men, he's a hero. All
Hmm.
right, let's move on, or I'll get stuck on it forever.
All right, yeah, yeah. When we've talked about creating tension and conflict. I mean, and the thing is, though, the villain doesn't necessarily have to be a bad person in the beginning. There's a lot of times we've seen stories where they're intentionally a good person trying to get on the side of good, and then good rejects them somewhere along the line, and they take that fuel of rejection and turn into this nemesis, this villain, you
I
know?
tell you, a great example is anyone watches Walking Dead, and I'm probably got smacked for this too. At the end, I felt, sorry and like, forgiving towards Negan. I mean, what a brutal piece of crap. But then you see like how he came to be with losing his wife and everything, and even when he killed Glenn, I mean, they just had killed a lot of his people, kind of rightly so with the stuff they did. But he's like, okay. And then you went on and you're like, okay, this guy really didn't want to be that guy.
Mhm.
He did not want to be that way. And you thought this is the most evil person on the planet. So his backstory was one, it was of pain and suffering that led him to that point.
And that's the thing, do you introduce that as this dark person that everybody hates at first, and then you slowly they unfold their memories of why they're this way, or does that in your sequel? You gotta decide. I want everybody to hate this person in the beginning.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
Or yeah, or do I develop this person? Like you gotta decide, what's facilitating their actions, what's creating this anti-hero, anti like good or whatever. And with that said, are they an anti-hero? Are they a classic villain? Are they someone who's like kind of morally in the gray area? Like what type of villain are they? You got to kind of create those parameters for that. I don't watch The Boys, but I know my husband does.
Yeah.
And I know there's a lot of that with the heroes turning dark, or they're always been dark. And
Yeah, it's pretty messed up.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
that's
wish
a
I would have watched it though, because I see that I know the one guy, forget his name, just Eccles. He's in that.
Jensen Ackles.
Yeah,
Ackles. Yeah, he's not in all of it. Soldier
Supernatural.
Boy.
Yeah, but the other 2 people from Supernatural coming, and the guy that plays Castiel and the guy that plays Sam,
They're coming to that series?
the boys. Yeah.
No, I need to go
Mhm.
back and start watching again. After I finish all The Walking Dead, I'm almost there. But that's like a freaky one because here the main superhero who's like Superman, everyone's like, oh, he is like everyone adores him and they love him, and what a psychotic
I've seen like clips and things, and I'm like, oh
Ye-
wow,
yeah, he's pretty
it's very dark.
hmm
Yeah, right. Um, yeah. So their motivations, their backstory. What are also think about their flaws. What's their kryptonite? What's their vulnerability? That's going to get to them. You know, is it was it a love between did the hero take your love and now you're scorned because he has the love of your life, and what's that all about?
So that
Um,
kind of reminds me of Potter. What is wrong with me today? The long black hair.
Gotcha.
Snape.
Oh,
And,
Snape. Oh, yes, because he was never a villain, and
yes,
he was always, he was
yes, he was all
always
well.
about
I mean,
Lily.
and you say that, but I think like when he lost Lily and he loved her, and I think I may be wrong, so you can
Well,
correct me.
he was a part of the Death Eaters until that point, but like,
Exactly.
right?
So he was kind of villainous, and then he was gotten through to, and deep in his heart, I don't think he ever was a villain. It's just like he was
Well,
so.
but look at it. He was kind of bullied by Harry Potter's dad.
Yeah, there was somebody who did the fan movies. I
Hmm.
wish I could find this and send this to you. They did one when like Snape and all of them were teenagers, and
Hmm.
it was like the backstory. It was brilliant. It looked as good as the movies. I have to
Hmm.
find it. And it's like, and then you realize before he knew anything about Snape, it was like, oh wow, yeah, he'd been put through a lot. So no
Hmm.
wonder he felt this way and acted this way.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I'll have to find this again because was the last book out before all the movies were done?
I don't know. There had
Because
to
I
be.
remember reading
Yeah.
something somewhere that he, as a character, was his name Alan Rickman or whatever? He was the only person that knew the ending and how that was going to be
Oh,
with the
then
tear in
maybe
it.
not. Maybe.
And so he knew how to act accordingly. He knew that it was always about Lily and protecting Harry for Lily. So I think I read that somewhere a long time ago or watched a video about that a long time ago. And that's kind of stuck with me. But that's the thing, like identifying that vulnerability of of their human side. We saw the human side of Snape in that tear, and you're like, I mean that very moment when he takes the tear and Harry sees everything, it
Yeah,
like changes like his and it's but then you're sad because it's too late because Snape and Harry will never have that.
that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. At what point do you reveal their identity of the human side?
That was kind of his crib. I mean, even though he wasn't a true villain, again, even though he acted the way he did to perceive that way, that Carrie was his kryptonite. Lily was his kryptonite.
Mhm.
He would do
Mhm.
it like when he showed his patronum when he did that, and
Yeah.
he's
And
like,
he thought it was his dad.
yeah, and he's like, wait a minute, that was you. He's like, you cared for the boy all this time, and he's like, always.
Mhm.
I'm getting cold chills. I love that movie, but I
I
can't remember
know.
exactly what he said.
Yes. Yeah. 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 I think Snape is one of my favorite characters in Harry Potter. But I mean, especially after knowing. And there are little human sides that you see throughout where he protects the kids against like the werewolf and the lichen thing
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, he's
So
no moaning Myrtle, but all right.
all right. So then let's talk about techniques in crafting this villain. How would you go about crafting this villain?
Of course, like with anything, I would show, I wouldn't tell. Like, there's got to be mannerisms about. There's going to be certain mannerisms, like even referring back to Snape, he would always be like Potter, was the way he would say his name and hit that P, or
And
the
always kind of give him that judging eye.
yeah, it was that judging eye, that little scowl, like
But
he's
he
just
had to because Malfoy was watching.
yes. So, but these are things like when you're constructing a villain, you want to I would want to grab a few mannerisms and show it, not tell it he's always scowling. No, we would rewrite it like the slits in his eyes just showed the hatred pouring through Harry's soul or whatever, but
Mhm.
hang on to that so you know that this guy is always just looking right through you with judgment and contempt. It's what I would do you know
Yeah. And that's something like when you say show don't tell, which is very hard for people to do. It's not as easy as just saying show don't tell. But when you are showing, don't showing, don't telling, again, write it down what you are having that character do so you remember, how do I have this character interact with how his traits interact with other people. Um,
Or situations.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, is he calm
What
every
is
time something blows
typical?
up?
Yeah, remembering how he would react in this scenario, almost like set the precedence down for that character, so you kind of remember that as you're going along. Or this is something that just came to mind was if they have a scar, maybe there's a battle scar that reminds them, maybe it's something on their and they're rubbing their finger and you don't know why they keep rubbing their finger, but just like don't say it in every paragraph that they rub their finger, just like, oh,
No,
you
I
know,
love that because now you remind me of I can't remember that vampire movie with Celine, Underworld,
underworld.
and when she released the one of the main vampires, and she did something, he would turn his head, and he like to make her shut up. Uh, yes, and it's like just that little any movements. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
could be that
Mm-hmm.
like scratching that scar or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but just remember where it is and like don't do it every single page,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, just a light note to it. Like I have one of my characters in the very beginning. There's a slight sting in her left hand, and you don't find out till the end of the chapter why that's happening. She's stuck to because of that symbol has bound her to that spot. You don't realize that. So just a very light reference to it, and then later be like, oh yeah, that's why that was happening.
Well, there could be other ways too. Like if you said they're rubbing their hands, and that's and they're
Mm-hmm.
really mad, and then say somebody was brought before them. It's like, hey, we caught you doing this. You know, somebody at work for them or whatever, and they kind of had their head down. And they're like, it's going to be okay. And they looked up and they saw her hands or they saw her motions, and they knew
Mm-hmm.
they were in trouble. You don't have to say it again. You
Well,
don't have
yeah,
to say they're rubbing their hands.
or the rubbing of the hands or the clenching of the hands. And then, like, in that moment, you're like, oh, why didn't they react? Maybe the clenching of the hands is a situation that keeps them from reacting.
Exploding. Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's their own personal, like, set, like, holding them back. Like, I'm holding my hands, I'm like squeezing. This is a reminder. Like, and then you go do a flashback to where that was something they learned to, like, keep their, to try and bottle in all of their, whatever they're going through. Um, so yeah, so keeping those little in there. Quotes. That turns me on to quotes, like thinking of things that like little points like scars, also key phrases that maybe they have. Like we know Potter.
Yes.
We hear always. When you hear always of Harry Potter, you know it's Snape. It is a word. It is one word that we use all the time in the English language, but it's when you see it with a triangle of the Deathly Hallows stuff, always, you know what it's referencing.
Yeah, it could be something like even a villain who, if it's a fantasy series and they have this, whole kingdom, and they're just horrible. But anytime somebody's brought before them for something bad, and they're like, "You're safe," which is a signal to the guards. Means like, "Yeah, we're cutting their head off here in a little bit," but the person's like, "Thank you, King." Whack.
I know we keep talking about this reminded me too, but like the scar. When you see the little lightning bolt, typically you think of the scar. You think of Voldemort giving that
Yeah.
scar to Harry. It's a very small little symbol, but you remember that. Like people see, oh, that's Harry Potter. People remember the scar because the boy who's the only person to survive that curse. It gives so many different meanings. So little things you can add in there. I wouldn't copy paste what J.K. Rowling did. Be a little bit more creative. Don't do exactly the same thing with your stuff. Anyways,
Could be a loss of an eye. Yep.
huh?
Lost of an eye. I think because I'm a Walking Dead. Gabriel, he lost that eye from infection, and so one's like brown and one's like almost, I'm colorblind, but like milky white blue or something. But I
Mm-hmm.
always remember back to when it happened.
Yes, yes. Um, this is something like creating the layers of your villain. When I was saying earlier, maybe they started out good, but then they realized the only their morals to redeem something, like say they're trying to save the city, but their actual goals of redemption for the city turn into corruption. Like the only way to say it's not like Thanos. Deep down, Thanos wanted to save
The
humanity.
universe. Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to save humanity throughout the universe, but he felt the only way he could do that was to get rid of half of them, so they wouldn't have to all starve.
It's
He
funny
didn't.
you bring that up because as I'm watching those movies, I know how evil he is perceived, but in my mind, I was like, he has seen like what has happened in the universe. He's like, I
Like,
think I'm doing what's best for everybody.
well, yeah, he keeps seeing these things happen, and the only way he could do is go from planet to planet to just like take out half of the population. Then you don't have to feed them, you know. Um, and then even when he's talking to Gamora, and she's like, "You don't understand." He's like, "I do understand." And like, he's an ultimate villain in these things, but he's literally his whole, like seed to start this was truly probably to help and to solve a problem. It just it's turned into like annihilation of complete people without feelings. You know what I mean?
Do know what you mean.
Yep. And you also, this is something you should probably decide pretty early on, so you have a goal. Is your villain's fate? Do they survive? Do they turn good? Do you fall in love with the villain and it's like this whole like, strange dynamic? Like what's going to happen to your villain so you can kind of story build around that?
Well, I know this is a sore subject, but I do know what's going to happen to the villain in Age of the Sigil.
Oh, really?
Yep.
When will we find that out?
In 2028, and I'm not for sure yet.
Remember, we have a bet going. Who gets done first, Canvas or you? And your book's shorter.
That's
You're
true,
shooting.
but I'm pretty sure if mine was 100,000 words and yours 300,000, you're still way ahead of me by however many words you've written.
Yeah, I'll have to look at the word count. Um, so this is something I am thinking me personally because I have a lot of like villains versus, and then there's anti-heroes essentially in my storyline. Think of where you're putting their cross points, where you're putting them, where does your villain foil your hero's plan? Because you have this hero's plan, but there's got to be some kind of fork in the road, you know. And I'm a firm believer in giving your reader option A and option B, but them not seeing option C. So creating that they can only see two possible ways that their hero can solve this problem, but create a third point that they can go and like change it around. Like, so decide those pretty early on. Maybe like lay those out in your head. I know you don't do this because you're a prancer.
No, but I'm swear listening to you, I mean, I'm not lying, gave me ideas for the first chapter of Sigil because I kind of knew
Write
what
it
was
down.
going, huh?
Write it down.
Yeah, I will afterwards. I'll do a note really quick.
Okay. So then, aside from just foiling and the contrast that they're going to be facing as your protagonist and your villain and stuff, you want to make sure that you discuss how they evolve. We talked about this before in a previous episode. Try not to make it too linear. Create some kind of evolving or devolving. Like they've got worse or they've got better. Like change some kind of progress, some kind of digression. Don't make both characters too linear. They have to be able to when they come together. Is this going to increase this part of this character and decrease this side? Keep those in mind, that these points that you're creating in your storyline, what are they doing to the overall characters and their transformation?
Good.
Shaking your head. People cannot hear you shake your head. The rocks in your
They can hear
head
this
do not
though.
make sound.
I keep hitting the table.
Jamie's just shaking his head in the podcast that people cannot hear.
Oh, that's right. I can't wrap my mind. I'm always thinking we're on video.
Yeah, well, which you are on video, but mostly there's also
I'll do this shaking my head, shaking my head.
shaking my head, SMH, SMH. Oh, like a graphic novel.
I like to know how the relationship between like the hero, the villain unfolds.
Like the dynamics, like
Yeah,
they're.
because yeah, I just thought of like Professor Xavier and Magneto,
Mm-hmm.
the hero,
Yeah,
the villain, and
yeah, and because they weren't always that way together,
no,
they were. Yeah,
and they're
they
even
were
still
like side by
friends. They're
side.
as much as they oppose each other,
Yeah,
they still get together
still
and play
respect each
chess.
other.
You know, when
Yeah.
Magneto's not killing somebody, or but or is it a straight out hatred? You
Well,
know,
it's like Tom and Jerry.
yes, they're best friends and then they hate each other.
Hmm. There are moments when they will share milk and lay together to keep each other warm. And Tom, or not Tom, Jerry will save Tom because if Tom's not there, Jerry doesn't have a purpose.
Yep.
Yeah, the cat and mouse chase. You gotta kind of see where those come together. Without the Joker, there is no Batman.
Yeah, and that's not the only dynamic. Like I said, it could be pure hatred. I can't think of one that comes to mind.
We mean pure hatred, like the villain just
That
purely
just
hates
just
life.
hates the hero, regardless. There's no,
But there has to be a reason. Like
yeah,
you have to have a pivot point or a pin where that feeling came into play. Was it? Did they see them on TV? Did they save that person? But then my aunt died because of that.
yeah, that's a good point.
You know. So yeah.
What's that movie? Bruce Willis. I see Dip. You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Oh my gosh, what is that movie called?
I don't. My brain. Anyway, in the
Yeah,
beginning, um, there
all
was
the
that
sounds are
actor that Mark. What is wrong with me today? The guy that played in Rockstar. My brain is shot. This is a big actor that everybody knows.
Dylan's probably saying it right now. He's telling us to the TV. He's telling us what the answer is.
Who played the main character in the movie Rockstar? Wahlberg. So Danny Wahlberg played in the movie with Bruce
Yeah.
Willis.
And what was that movie? Oh my
I See
gosh.
Dead People
The
movie.
Others? No, that's not the others. That was one with Nicole Kidman.
The Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
when Donnie Wahlberg is like he's real skinny and he could see ghosts and he shot and we never knew it, but there's kind of, I mean, it's kind of a sad story villain. He didn't want to be a villain, but he was so scared and affected by all these ghosts, and he ended up
Hmm.
killing Bruce because you never helped me, you never believed in me. So that was his backstory. I went to this psychologist who's supposed to help turn my life around, and
Hmm.
it didn't do anything for me.
Hmm.
So, but that's a
Oh
lighter
yeah.
villain to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's again their drive. How villainous is your villain? You know. Is your villain someone who chose the one over the multitude? What was the reason that they had to make this choice? Are they someone who was not given an option? You know.
That's a good one. They got my wife and kid. I have to do this. I'm sorry, I have to kill you. So there, you never know. There, I mean, but this is.
That's like in Dune. Did you watch Dune?
I watched the old one. I watched the first one. Until I have time, I need to go back and watch both of them together.
The one with Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
Those are so good. Those are really, really good. And people can say whatever about Timothy Chalamet, but he is really good in Dune. I think he's a pretty good actor,
I
personally.
do too.
Um, all right. Last segment of this topic would be tips for writing a memorable villain. What kind of tips would you give our listeners?
Well, since I don't have my notes popped up and I'm going off the cuff, I think you really need to. One thing I would do, I know this is no new, I would look back if you've ever, I hope this isn't true, but if you've been bullied or, you didn't like somebody, if you could look and pull from like your own situations and you could base it on that. Maybe you had some kid, was just a punk in school. Of course, later you got along or whatever. Can you relate to it? Is there a way? Can you look in your life or friend's life and be like, I can pull from that? That's where I would start, and then I would have to have some kind of backstory before I could even really build that character, what he looked like, what she looked like, their mannerisms. So I'd have to know if, are they just power hungry? Were they scorned? What
Mhm.
what is the reason? You're when you're born a child, you're not born a villain. You grow into that. So,
Debatable.
oh, well, yeah, I mean, there's probably a few.
I
Damian
mean, if you
Omen.
get into genetics, you could say that there is a like genealogy wise, which I'm playing into with Canvas, that because human women were taken advantage of and forced to have children with the fallen, half their DNA is fallen.
Yeah, but in your story too, a lot of them don't know that there's something that happens that triggers that, and then they
Mm-hmm.
start getting that. So somewhere in
Well,
their life,
that's what I'm saying is, is it, are they born that way? Like, is, because you can't say that someone's not born a villain
well,
because,
then the better
I've
way
seen
to
some
put it
pretty
is,
evil children.
at what point, if you were born a villain, what point did this child innocence you have when you're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 flip?
Mm-hmm.
Something happened. Like there's an old movie called The Good Son with from Home Alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm telling you, I need something because my brain just doesn't function anymore.
You need to like maybe microdose some shrooms or
Yeah,
something.
Macaulay, whatever his name is.
Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah, Calkin.
Macaulay Culkin Culkin.
Yeah, Calkin. He like,
Yeah.
watched that movie and Elijah Wood was in it. And you think he's the sweetest boy and this is the good son. No, he was pure evil at around 10 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
what? And we really don't know what made him that way.
Well, and so that's kind of the theory that if you can go back in time, would you kill Hitler as a baby?
And that's a tough one because
People are
it's a
like,
child.
yes, and like, oh, but you would kill a monster or you would kill a baby? Be like,
Yes.
oh no, I wouldn't. Be like, oh, so then you wouldn't kill Hitler because he rose up to be a monster? Like, it's that ethics dilemma
Yes.
essentially. But at the same time, it's kind of like this is I heard this a long time ago that biblically God put Moses in a certain timeline because he knew that Moses as a genetic being and Pharaoh as a genetic being would both react to each other in a certain way to make certain events happen.
Mm.
So that's a theory that you are not necessarily predestined, but your genetics will predestine you to make certain types of decisions if you're linked next to another person. So, because this person connects with this person, they're both typically going to react this way because that's just who they are.
Shaking my head, shaking my head, shaking my
Shake
head.
my head.
Yeah,
Um,
so figure out where's their origin story.
mhm.
Can you relate it to something? And you can take it like maybe I got in a fight once with some kid and we made up, but I could even go back and look at that and be like, oh, I like how he scowled or something, and I can use that for this character and build upon that. So I feel like it's relatable and it makes it feel real to me.
Well, you saying the word scowl brings me to a point that I wanted to make about a tip that I wanted to make. And that is try to not be cliche.
Hmm.
Don't $1 million. Don't have like this over the top evil laugh because that's what I mean, that's just cliche. So you got to kind of think outside the box. You got to create something that even maybe go outside the tropes of your own genre. You know what I mean? Like just kind of like play around with it. Like, and if you're like, oh, that just doesn't seem to fit. Well, maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's supposed to not fit because it's not like anything else. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess you don't want your readers to say, "Who didn't see that coming?" That's typical.
yeah, we've talked about that. Things are going to be overdone to a certain extent, but don't make everything overdone. Find something that is unique between your villain and your hero, your protagonist, that is unique somehow. I mean, even the way you display it, I don't know. I can't tell you how to do that. Um, I came up with some stuff in mind. I'm not going to give away yet,
Hmm.
but I mean, I've told you some things that I'm going to do, and I'm trying to stick to some historical, um, religious stuff with a fictional twist to it. But I like that whole like taking a twist and making it almost believable. Like, oh, maybe that actually did happen. I don't know. Seems fair that that's how they would react. So, or be completely different. You can make it up. I don't know. I don't know. You got to make sure that you're keeping your readers engaged and
Yeah.
not being like, ugh.
I think as many books that we've written, of course we've made it up and we grew from it. But now it makes me feel like, man, I should go back and read all my books and take all these notes because these would be cool little podcast things, like break
Mhm.
down like how did Chris and I approach every different villain or every love affair or whatever it may be. So you learn that there's so many different pathways to tell this story. Just try to be unique, and like you said, there's going to be repetitive stuff. There's,
Mhm.
we've seen a movie or read a book and like, oh, that's just like this other one. Well, I mean, there's so many ways you can tell it, and so there will be some familiarity across, even genres. So just try to be unique and try not to overdo it.
Yeah, and that's something that I did with the devil because we know the devil to be evil. We have this idea of the devil, and I changed the perspective of the devil is allowed to have free choice, just like we are. It's kind of like you're given your villain options of choice,
That
and
that
what
brings
choices. Go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. Yeah. And that's Carissa's take on it. Now for her husband, devil, devil. No, you the devil, mama. I had to stick that in there because you know what I'm
Wait,
talking about.
is that Adam Sandler or something?
Yeah, Waterboy.
Okay, is
You
that
leave me here
Waterboy
with
or Little
Steve.
Nicky?
No, I forgot about Little Nicky.
Oh, because I know there's a devil in Little Nicky, right?
What's his? Yeah, there is, but this is Mama. Devil, devil. She's the devil. No, you the devil,
Oh
Mama.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
I like Mickey
it has
Malacourt.
yeah, it has the girl from Return to Oz.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, yes, yes.
Yep.
Got it. All right. Another great episode.
Yep. Fun, fun, fun.
Yes. If you have a villain that you've created that you'd like to share with us, if you're an author who would like to come on and give us your little ideas of how you created your villain and your superhero or your nemesis and protagonist, all these situations, if you want to share that with us, reach out to us at alwayswritepodcast@gmail.com. Shoot us an email and we'll get back to you. If this is your first time listening, you can go to alwayswritepodcast.com and click on those little icons. You can find all the places to follow us. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads for the most part because I don't post on TikTok and I don't post on X. But then you can also click and see where you can listen to us and watch us and subscribe. Until next time, SMH. Until next time, get out there and create them villains and get to writing. So, as always, I'm author Carissa DeLay.
And I'm author Jaime Vendera.
Until next time, always write.